Dominic Pierce sat in his corner office on the 42nd floor, staring at the letter that would destroy everything he had built. The words blurred together as he read them for the 5th time. Hostile takeover. 30 days. Complete acquisition. His hands shook, not from fear, but from the crushing realization that 10 years of sacrifice meant nothing. The company his father started, the employees who depended on him, the legacy he swore to protect. All of it would be gone in a month. He crumpled the letter and threw it across the room. The sunset cast long shadows through the windows, but he barely noticed. His phone buzzed for the 20th time. Whitney. His younger sister had been calling all day, but he couldn't bring himself to answer. What would he tell her? That he failed? That everything their father worked for would belong to strangers who only saw dollar signs? The office door burst open. Whitney stood there in a bright red coat, her brown hair pulled back, her eyes filled with determination. She walked straight to his desk and placed both hands on the polished surface. "You're going on that blind date tonight," she said firmly. Dominic looked at his sister like she had lost her mind. "Did you hear anything I told you this morning? The company is being taken over. I don't have time for your matchmaking games." "That's exactly why you need this," Whitney insisted. She walked around the desk and grabbed his shoulders. "Dom, you've been alone in this office for 3 months straight. You haven't eaten a real meal. You haven't slept. You're killing yourself and you still can't find a solution. Maybe what you need isn't another business strategy. Maybe you need to remember what you're actually fighting for." "I know what I'm fighting for." "Do you?" Whitney's voice softened. "Because from where I'm standing, you're fighting to save a company, but you've forgotten about saving yourself. 1 date. 3 hours. If you hate it, I'll never bother you again about your personal life. But please just try." Dominic wanted to refuse. Every logical part of his brain screamed that he didn't have time for this. But something in his sister's eyes made him pause. She wasn't just being her usual meddling self. She was genuinely worried about him. "Fine," he said quietly. 1 date. That's it." Whitney's face lit up. "Thank you. Her name is Naomi. She's different, Dom. I promise you that. 7 o'clock at Riverside Bistro. Please don't cancel." After Whitney left, Dominic sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. What was he doing? His entire world was falling apart and he was agreeing to have dinner with a stranger. But maybe Whitney was right. Maybe he needed something, anything to remind him why he was fighting so hard. Across the city, Naomi Bennett stood in her small apartment, staring at the bright blue dress hanging on her closet door. She didn't want to go on this blind date. She didn't have time for romance. Her mother was sick, medical bills were piling up, and she had 3 case files to review before tomorrow. But her best friend Tasha had arranged this date weeks ago, before everything got worse, and Tasha wouldn't take no for an answer. "You deserve 1 night where you're not drowning in problems," Tasha had said that morning. "1 night where you're just Naomi, not the woman trying to save everyone else. Please. For me." Naomi picked up her phone and looked at her bank account. The surgery her mother needed cost more than she made in a year. The community center where she worked was understaffed and underfunded. Every family she tried to help needed resources she didn't have. How could she sit in some fancy restaurant pretending her life wasn't falling apart? But she had promised Tasha. And maybe, just maybe, a few hours of pretending would give her the strength to face another impossible day. She put on the blue dress, fixed her hair, and practiced smiling in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was beautiful, but tired. So tired. Her brown eyes held worry that no amount of makeup could hide. But she would go. She would be polite. She would get through this evening, and then she would return to the real world and its endless problems. Neither Dominic nor Naomi knew that this blind date, this one evening they were both dreading, would change everything. Have you ever felt like giving up right before everything was about to change? What do you think will happen when these two struggling souls meet? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to find out how this story unfolds. Your support means everything. The morning had started wrong. Dominic woke at 4 a.m. in his penthouse, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his laptop open beside him on the bed. Numbers and projections glowed on the screen, mocking him with their finality. No matter how many times he ran the calculations, the result stayed the same. Pierce Industries would be acquired by Blackstone Capital in 30 days unless he found a miracle. He showered and dressed in his usual sharp suit, a navy blue that made him look every bit the powerful CEO he was supposed to be. But as he knotted his tie, he caught his reflection in the bathroom mirror. When had he gotten so old? At 34, gray was already threading through his dark hair. Lines creased his forehead. His blue eyes looked hollow. The drive to the office felt longer than usual. Seattle's morning traffic crawled, giving him too much time to think. His father had built Pierce Industries from nothing, a small construction company that grew into a real estate development empire. When Richard Pierce retired 5 years ago, he handed the company to Dominic with simple instructions: take care of the employees, build quality homes, and never sacrifice integrity for profit. Dominic had followed those rules. Maybe that was his mistake. While he focused on building sustainable communities and treating workers fairly, companies like Blackstone Capital played dirty. They bought up competitors, slashed costs, and maximized profits. Now they wanted Pierce Industries, and they had the money and the ruthlessness to take it. His assistant, Margaret, greeted him with coffee and a sympathetic look as he entered the building. She had worked for his father for 20 years and knew exactly how serious the situation was. "Your sister called 4 times already," Margaret said gently. "She says it's important." "It's always important to Whitney," Dominic muttered, heading into his office. But Whitney wouldn't give up. She appeared at lunchtime, carrying takeout containers that Dominic ignored. She sat across from his desk, refusing to leave until he ate something. That's when she brought up the blind date again. "You need perspective," Whitney said, pushing a container of pasta toward him. "You've been staring at spreadsheets for 3 months. Maybe talking to someone outside this business bubble would help." "I don't need a date. I need $30 million and a miracle." "What you need is to remember that life exists outside these walls." Whitney's voice grew firm. "The woman I want you to meet is named Naomi Bennett. She's a social worker. She spends her days helping families who are struggling. She knows what it's like when everything feels impossible. Maybe she's exactly the perspective you need." Dominic finally looked at his sister. Really looked at her. Whitney was 28, 6 years younger, and she had always been the optimistic one in their family. While he buried himself in work, she volunteered at shelters and organized charity events. She believed in the goodness of people in a way that Dominic had forgotten how to. "Why does this matter so much to you?" he asked. Whitney's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm watching you disappear, Dom. You haven't laughed in months. You barely eat. You don't call mom and dad anymore. You're so focused on saving the company that you're losing yourself. And if you lose yourself, what's the point of saving anything?" Her words hit harder than any business report. Dominic realized his sister was right. He had become a ghost, haunting his own life. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll go." Whitney hugged him tightly. "Thank you." 7 o'clock. Riverside Bistro. "And Dom? Try to actually be present. Not just physically there, but actually present." After she left, Dominic tried to return to work, but concentration eluded him. He kept thinking about what Whitney said. Had he really lost himself? When was the last time he did something just because it made him happy? When was the last time he felt anything other than stress and exhaustion? Meanwhile, across town, Naomi's day was going from bad to worse. She worked at Rainier Community Center, a nonprofit that provided resources for struggling families. This morning she met with the Torres family who were facing eviction. Then the Patterson family whose electricity had been shut off. Then Mrs. Chin whose disability check was delayed again. Each meeting broke her heart a little more because she couldn't help them the way they needed. Her supervisor, Helen, found her in the break room at lunch, staring at a cup of coffee she couldn't afford to buy from anywhere nicer. "You can't save everyone, Naomi," Helen said gently. "I know. But I should be able to save someone." Naomi's voice cracked. "What's the point of this job if I can't actually help?" "You do help. You listen. You care. You fight for them. That matters." But it didn't feel like enough. It never felt like enough. When Naomi finally got home that evening, her mother was resting on the couch, looking pale and weak. Lorraine Bennett had been a teacher for 30 years before kidney disease forced her into early retirement. She needed surgery, but their insurance wouldn't cover it, and the cost was astronomical. "How was your day, baby?" Lorraine asked, trying to smile. "It was fine, Mama." Naomi kissed her mother's forehead. "How are you feeling?" "Oh, you know me. Tough as nails." But the tremble in her mother's hand told a different story. Naomi wanted to cry. Instead, she went to her room and looked at that blue dress again. Tasha had bought it for her birthday last month, insisting that Naomi needed something beautiful just for herself. At the time, Naomi had laughed. When would she ever have a reason to wear something so lovely? Now, standing in her small bedroom, she decided that maybe tonight she would pretend. She would put on this dress, go to this fancy restaurant, and for 3 hours she would pretend she was someone whose biggest problem was choosing dessert. Then tomorrow she would return to reality and figure out how to save her mother's life. She showered and dressed carefully. The blue dress fit perfectly, bringing out the warm tones in her brown skin. She styled her natural hair, put on minimal makeup and looked at herself one final time. The woman in the mirror looked confident and beautiful. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like how Naomi felt inside. Her phone buzzed. Tasha. You better be getting ready, the text said. This guy is supposed to be handsome and successful. Maybe he's your miracle. Naomi almost laughed. She didn't believe in miracles anymore. But she texted back a smiley face and grabbed her coat. At least the restaurant was nice. At least she would have one good meal before returning to her world of impossible problems and insufficient solutions. Neither Dominic nor Naomi had any idea that they were both walking toward the same restaurant, both dreading the evening ahead, both convinced that nothing good could come from this blind date. They were both wrong. Riverside Bistro sat along the waterfront, its windows glowing warmly against the evening sky. Dominic arrived 15 minutes early, a habit from years of business meetings. He chose a table near the window where he could see the boats bobbing in the marina. The hostess smiled politely, clearly recognizing him. Seattle's business community was small enough that his face was familiar to anyone working in upscale establishments. He ordered water and checked his phone. Nothing new. The takeover was still happening. The world was still falling apart. He had 3 hours to get through this date, and then he could return to trying to save his company. At 7:15, Naomi still hadn't arrived. Dominic wasn't surprised. He had been stood up before. Usually, women were intimidated when they discovered who he was. Or they were only interested in his money. Either way, blind dates never worked out. He was about to leave when the hostess approached his table, followed by a woman in a bright blue dress who looked flustered and apologetic. I am so sorry I'm late, Naomi said, slightly out of breath. The bus broke down and I had to wait for the next one, and then traffic was terrible and I should have left earlier, but my mom needed her medication and... I'm really sorry. Dominic stood automatically, caught off guard by her honesty. Most women would have made up a more glamorous excuse. But this woman just told him she took the bus and cared for her sick mother. There was something refreshing about that. It's fine, he said, pulling out her chair. I just got here myself. That was a lie, but it seemed kind. Naomi sat down, still looking embarrassed. Up close she was even more striking. Her natural hair framed her face beautifully, and her brown eyes held a depth that suggested she had seen real struggle. She wore no expensive jewelry, just simple earrings. Her dress was lovely but clearly not designer. Everything about her was genuine. I'm Naomi, she said, extending her hand. Dominic. He shook her hand, noticing how warm it was. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. The waiter appeared, and Dominic ordered wine while Naomi asked for water with lemon. Another surprise. Most of his dates ordered the most expensive items on the menu. So, Naomi said, folding her hands on the table, I should probably be honest. I almost didn't come tonight. This whole blind date thing isn't really my scene. My friend set this up weeks ago and I've been trying to cancel, but she wouldn't let me. So if this is weird, we can just have a quick dinner and call it a night. No hard feelings. Dominic found himself almost smiling. I almost didn't come either. My sister guilt me into it. She thinks I work too much. Do you? Probably. He paused. Definitely. What do you do? This was the moment that usually ruined everything. As soon as women learned he was a CEO, they changed. They became flirtatious or calculating or overly impressed. He braced himself. I run a real estate development company. We build residential communities, mostly affordable housing projects. Naomi's eyes lit up, but not with greed. With genuine interest. Really? That's amazing. I work at a community center, and housing is one of our biggest issues. So many families can't find affordable places to live. Do you work here in Seattle? And just like that, they were talking. Really talking. Naomi asked intelligent questions about his work, about the challenges of balancing affordability with quality construction. She shared stories about families she worked with, about the systemic problems that kept people trapped in poverty. Dominic found himself leaning forward, engaged in a way he hadn't been in months. The waiter came and went. They ordered food, though Naomi chose modestly. Dominic noticed and quietly told the waiter to bring appetizers for the table. When the food arrived, Naomi looked concerned. I didn't order all this. I did. You mentioned you came straight from work. You must be hungry. For a moment, Naomi looked like she might argue. Then her stomach growled softly and she laughed. It was a real laugh, unguarded and genuine. Okay, you're right. Thank you. They ate and talked. Dominic learned that Naomi had studied social work in college, working 2 jobs to pay her tuition. Her father had passed away when she was 16, and she helped her mother raise her younger brother, who was now in the military. She spoke about her family with such love that it made Dominic's chest ache. "What about you?" Naomi asked. "Do you have family?" "A sister, Whitney. She's the one who set up this date. And my parents, Richard and Patricia. They're retired now, living on Bainbridge Island." "That sounds nice. Are you close with them?" Dominic hesitated. "I used to be. Lately, I've been so focused on work that I haven't called as much as I should. They probably worry." "They definitely worry," Naomi said softly. "That's what parents do." Something about the way she said it made Dominic feel guilty. When was the last time he had dinner with his parents? When was the last time he asked about their lives instead of just giving status updates about the company? "What about your family?" he asked. "You mentioned your mom needed medication. Is she okay?" Naomi's smile faltered. "She has kidney disease. She needs surgery, but it's complicated. We're working on it." There was so much unspoken pain in those words. Dominic recognized it because he carried his own unspoken pain. But before he could ask more, Naomi changed the subject. "So tell me something that has nothing to do with work. What do you do for fun?" Dominic opened his mouth and realized he had no answer. When was the last time he did something just for fun? He couldn't remember. I used to play basketball," he said slowly. "In college. I was pretty good." "Why did you stop?" "Time. Or life." He shrugged. "The usual excuses." "Those aren't excuses. Those are just sad." But Naomi said it with such kindness that it didn't feel like an insult. Everyone needs something that makes them happy. Something that has nothing to do with responsibility or obligation. Just pure joy. "What brings you joy?" Dominic asked. Naomi thought for a moment. "Reading. Old novels, the kind with happy endings. And cooking when I have time. And watching my mom laugh. That's probably my favorite thing in the whole world." The way she talked about her mother made Dominic's heart squeeze. Here was someone who was clearly struggling, clearly overwhelmed, but still finding joy in simple moments. When was the last time he found joy in anything? They talked through dinner and dessert. Naomi told funny stories about her work, about the kids at the community center who called her Miss Naomi and drew her pictures. Dominic found himself laughing, really laughing for the first time in months. She had a way of seeing the absurd humor in difficult situations, of finding light in darkness. When the check came, Dominic grabbed it immediately. Naomi reached for her purse. "Let me at least pay for my half." "Absolutely not. This is my treat." "But, Naomi, I asked you to dinner." "Well, technically Whitney asked you on my behalf. Either way I'm paying." "Please." She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you. That's really kind." As they left the restaurant, Dominic wasn't ready for the evening to end. They walked along the marina, the water reflecting the city lights. It was a clear night, cool but not cold. "Can I ask you something?" Naomi said. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." "Go ahead. Earlier you said you almost didn't come tonight. You looked, I don't know, stressed isn't the right word. You looked like someone carrying the weight of the world. Are you okay?" No one had asked him that in months. Everyone asked about the company, about strategy, about numbers. But no one asked if he was okay. "Honestly? No. My company is being taken over. I have 30 days to find a solution and I can't see one. Everything my father built, everything I've worked for, it's all going to disappear." Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. "I'm sorry. That must be terrifying." "It is." Dominic was surprised by his own honesty. "I keep thinking there must be something I'm missing. Some angle I haven't considered. But I've looked at every option and they all lead to the same place." "Maybe you're looking in the wrong direction," Naomi said thoughtfully. "When I get stuck on a case, when I can't figure out how to help a family, I stop thinking about what I can do and start thinking about what they need. Sometimes the answer isn't about resources. Sometimes it's about connection. About reminding people why they're fighting in the first place." Dominic stared at her. "That's actually profound." Naomi laughed. "It sounded better in my head. My point is, maybe you're so focused on saving the company that you've forgotten what you're actually trying to save. The building? The name? Or the people and the mission?" They reached her bus stop. Dominic didn't want her to leave. This evening had been the best few hours he'd had in months. Maybe years. "Can I see you again?" The words came out before he could think about them. Naomi smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "Dominic, you seem like a really good person. But I don't think we're living in the same world." You're a CEO. I'm a social worker barely keeping my head above water. You drive what is that, a Tesla? I take the bus. This was a lovely evening, but let's be realistic. What if I don't want to be realistic? Dominic said. What if I want to see where this goes? Where can it go? You're dealing with a corporate takeover. I'm dealing with medical bills I can't pay. We're both drowning in different oceans. Then maybe we drown together. Dominic surprised himself with the words. Or maybe we help each other swim. Naomi looked at him for a long moment. The bus appeared in the distance, its lights growing brighter. I had a really nice time tonight, she said softly. Thank you for reminding me that nice things can still happen. She started to board the bus, but Dominic gently caught her hand. Please. One more date. Coffee, something casual. I don't want tonight to be the end. The bus driver honked impatiently. Naomi looked torn. Okay, she said finally. One more date. But only because you make me laugh and I haven't laughed in a while. She scribbled her number on a piece of paper from her purse and handed it to him before boarding the bus. Dominic watched it drive away, still holding the paper like it was something precious. For the first time in months he felt something other than despair. He felt hope. Dominic couldn't stop thinking about Naomi. The next morning he arrived at his office actually feeling rested for the first time in weeks. Margaret noticed immediately. You look different, she said, studying him carefully. Did something happen? I went on a date. Margaret's eyebrows rose. And it was good. Really good. Dominic found himself smiling. She's different from anyone I've met before. Different how? She's real. Honest. She didn't care about my money or my position. She just talked to me like I was a normal person. Margaret smiled warmly. That's wonderful. You deserve someone who sees you, not just your bank account. But as Dominic settled into his office and looked at the stacks of paperwork on his desk, reality crashed back down. He still had a company to save. He still had 30 days until Blackstone Capital took everything. One good date didn't change that. He picked up his phone and called his chief financial officer, Thomas Rodriguez. They spent 2 hours going over potential solutions, but none of them worked. They couldn't raise enough capital. They couldn't find a white knight investor. They couldn't outbid Blackstone's offer to the shareholders. I'm sorry, Dominic, Thomas said heavily. I don't see a way out of this. After the call ended, Dominic sat in silence. Then he picked up the piece of paper with Naomi's number. He wanted to call her to hear her voice, but what would he say? He couldn't drag her into his mess. She had enough problems of her own. But he couldn't stop thinking about what she said. Maybe you're looking in the wrong direction. On impulse, he called his head of security, a man named Frank Peterson who had connections throughout the city. Frank, I need you to do some research for me. Quietly. There's a woman named Naomi Bennett. She works at Rainier Community Center. Her mother needs surgery for kidney disease. I need to know the details. Costs, waiting lists, everything. Is this personal or professional? Frank asked carefully. Personal. And Frank? Total discretion. Understood. 2 hours later, Frank called back. The news was worse than Dominic expected. Lorraine Bennett needed a kidney transplant. She was on a waiting list, but it could take years. She could get the surgery sooner at a private hospital, but it would cost $200,000, not including recovery care and medication. Naomi's insurance covered almost none of it. $200,000. For Dominic, that was a rounding error. For Naomi, it was impossible. He made a decision. That afternoon, he left the office early and drove to Rainier Community Center. It was in a modest neighborhood, the kind his company tried to improve with their affordable housing projects. The building was old but well-maintained, with colorful murals painted on the outside walls. Inside, children ran through hallways covered in artwork. Adults sat in a common area, some reading, some talking. It felt alive in a way his sterile office building never did. He asked the receptionist for Naomi Bennett. The young man looked him up and down, clearly wondering what someone in an expensive suit wanted with their social worker. I'll see if she's available. What's your name? Dominic Pierce. A few minutes later, Naomi appeared from a back hallway, looking surprised and a little flustered. She wore practical clothes today, dark green pants and a white blouse, her hair pulled back. She looked professional and beautiful. Dominic? What are you doing here? Can we talk? Somewhere private? She led him to a small office that she clearly shared with other staff members. Desks were crammed together, filing cabinets overflowed with paperwork. This was where she spent her days trying to help people with almost no resources. Is everything okay? Naomi asked, concern in her eyes. Did something happen? I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you respond. Dominic took a breath. I did some research on your mother's condition. I know she needs a kidney transplant. I know it costs $200,000 that you don't have. Naomi's face went pale. Why would you? Let me finish. Please. He stepped closer. I want to pay for the surgery. All of it. The procedure, the recovery, the medications, everything. I want your mother to get the care she needs. What? No. Dominic, no. That's too much. I can't accept that. Why not? Because it's $200,000. Because we barely know each other. Because I can't take that kind of money from you. Naomi, I have the money. For me, this is easy. For you, this is your mother's life. Why wouldn't you let me help? Tears filled her eyes. Because people don't just do things like this. There's always a catch. What do you want from me? The question hurt more than it should have. I don't want anything. I just want to help. Your mother is sick and I can fix that. Why is that so hard to accept? Because. Naomi's voice broke. Because I've spent my whole life learning that nothing comes for free. Because accepting help this big means owing someone, and I don't know how I could ever repay you. Dominic moved closer, resisting the urge to hug her. You don't have to repay me. This isn't a loan. It's a gift. Your mother deserves to be healthy. You deserve not to carry this weight. Naomi wiped her eyes, clearly struggling with the decision. Why are you doing this? Be honest. Because you're the first person in years who made me remember that there's more to life than balance sheets and board meetings. Because you listened to me last night like I mattered. Because your mother raised someone as amazing as you, and she deserves to see you happy. Because I can and so I should. The silence stretched between them. Naomi looked at him with those deep brown eyes, searching for dishonesty, for an ulterior motive. But Dominic met her gaze steadily. He meant every word. If I say yes, Naomi said quietly, it's because my mother needs this. Not because I want your money. Not because I'm trying to use you. It's because she's my mom and I can't lose her. I know. And I will find a way to pay you back. I don't know how or when, but I will. We can figure that out later. For now, just say yes. Let me help. Naomi closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. When she opened them again, she nodded. Yes, thank you. God, thank you so much. This time, Dominic did hug her. She clung to him, sobbing with relief, and he held her while she let out all the fear and stress she'd been carrying. He could feel her trembling, could feel the weight of her gratitude and her grief. When she finally pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. I don't know what to say. You're literally saving her life. Then let's get started. I'll have my assistant contact the best transplant surgeons in Seattle. We'll get your mother in to see them this week. This week? Naomi laughed incredulously. I've been trying to get appointments for months. Well, now you have help. Dominic pulled out his phone. Margaret, I need you to contact Seattle Medical Center. I need appointments with their top 3 transplant surgeons, this week if possible. It's for a friend's mother. Yes, I understand they're busy. Tell them I'll make a substantial donation to their transplant program. Thank you. He hung up and found Naomi staring at him with wonder. Does that usually work? She asked. Usually. He smiled. Money opens doors, Naomi. I've always known that. But until last night, I forgot that money can also help people. Really help them. Not just as a tax write-off, but as a way to make someone's life better. Naomi shook her head slowly. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more cold, I guess. Businesslike. You're a CEO. You're supposed to be calculating and ruthless. Maybe I am in business. But with you, I don't want to be that person. I want to be someone better. Before Naomi could respond, her supervisor Helen poked her head into the office. She looked at Dominic curiously, then at Naomi's tear-stained face. Everything okay in here? Everything's perfect, Naomi said, her voice thick with emotion. Helen, this is Dominic Pierce. Dominic, this is my supervisor, Helen Washington. Helen's eyes widened slightly at his name. The Dominic Pierce? From Pierce Industries. That's me. Dominic shook her hand. What brings you to our little center? Helen asked, clearly protective of Naomi. I came to make Naomi an offer. Dominic looked at Naomi. This is the other thing I wanted to discuss. My company is starting a charitable foundation. We want to focus on housing security and family support. I need someone to run it, someone who understands the real problems families face. I want that person to be you, Naomi. Naomi's mouth fell open. What? I'm serious. You would work out of Pierce Industries with a full staff and real resources. Your job would be identifying families who need help and making sure they get it. You would have an actual budget to work with, not the scraps nonprofits usually get. But I don't have experience running a foundation. You have experience helping people. That's what matters. The administrative stuff can be taught. Compassion can't be. Helen was nodding enthusiastically. Naomi, this is an incredible opportunity. But what about here? What about my families? You'd be able to help more families than you ever could here, Dominic pointed out. With real resources. With the ability to actually solve problems instead of just patching them temporarily. Naomi looked overwhelmed. This is too much. The surgery, the job, it's all too much too fast. Take time to think about it, Dominic said gently. The surgery is happening regardless. But the job offer stands. Talk to your mother. Talk to Helen. Think about what you really want. I'll call you in a few days. As he left the community center, Dominic felt lighter than he had in months. Yes, his company was still in crisis. Yes, he still had problems that seemed insurmountable. But for the first time in a long time, he was using his resources for something meaningful. He was helping someone who deserved it. His phone rang. Whitney. How did the date go? She demanded without preamble. Better than expected. Dominic couldn't keep the smile out of his voice. Actually, it was perfect. You were right, Whitney. I needed this. I'm always right. Are you seeing her again? I hope so. I just offered to pay for her mother's surgery and offered her a job running our new foundation. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, you did what? I helped her. Isn't that what you wanted? For me to remember what matters. Whitney laughed, the sound delighted. I wanted you to go on a date, not fall in love and reorganize your entire life. I'm not in love, Dominic protested. Sure you're not. Dom, I'm proud of you. This is the brother I remember. The one who cared about people. After they hung up, Dominic drove back to his office with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. Maybe Whitney was right. Maybe he was falling for Naomi. Or maybe he was just finally remembering how to be human. Either way, he wasn't going to stop. 3 days later, Naomi sat in the waiting room of Seattle Medical Center with her mother, holding her hand tightly. The appointment had been scheduled within 48 hours of Dominic's phone call. Naomi still couldn't believe this was really happening. Lorraine Bennett looked small in the big waiting room chair. At 58, she should have been vibrant and healthy. Instead, kidney disease had stolen her energy, her color, her joy. But today, her eyes held hope. Tell me about this man again, Lorraine said, her voice weak but curious. The one paying for all this. His name is Dominic Pierce. I met him on that blind date Tasha set up. And he's doing all this after one date? Naomi squeezed her mother's hand. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to me too. But Mama, he's genuine. I can tell. This isn't about manipulating me or trying to control me. He just wants to help. Baby, people like that don't exist. Rich men always want something. Maybe most do. But I think Dominic is different. Naomi remembered how he held her while she cried, how he never once made her feel small or indebted. He has his own struggles, his own problems. Maybe helping us helps him too in some way. Before Lorraine could respond, a nurse called them back. The next hour passed in a blur of examinations, questions, and medical tests. The surgeon, Dr. Patricia Winters, was kind but thorough. She explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery timeline. And through it all, she treated them like any other patients, not charity cases. Your tissue markers suggest you'd be a good candidate for transplant, Dr. Winters said to Lorraine. We have several potential donors in our system. With your permission, I'd like to move forward with matching as soon as possible. How soon is soon? Naomi asked, barely daring to hope. If we find a good match, we could have you in surgery within 4 to 6 weeks. Lorraine started crying. Naomi did too. After months of waiting, of slowly getting worse, of facing the possibility that Lorraine might not get better, suddenly there was a real timeline, a real chance. Thank you, Lorraine whispered. Thank you so much. Dr. Winters smiled warmly. Thank Mr. Pierce. His donation to our program is making it possible for us to help several patients who were waiting for funding. As they left the hospital, Lorraine turned to her daughter. You need to thank this man properly. Invite him to dinner. Let me meet him. Mama, he's a very busy I don't care if he's the president. He saved my life. I want to look him in the eye and say thank you. Naomi smiled. Okay. I'll ask him. That night she called Dominic. He answered on the second ring, sounding tired but pleased to hear from her. How did the appointment go? Really well. Dr. Winters is amazing. She thinks we can have the surgery within 6 weeks. That's wonderful. The relief in his voice was genuine. I'm so glad. Dominic, my mom wants to meet you. She wants to say thank you in person. Would you come to dinner at our place? Nothing fancy, just home cooking. There was a pause. Naomi worried she'd overstepped, that he would make an excuse. I'd love to, Dominic said warmly. When? They set a date for the following Saturday. After hanging up, Naomi felt nervous butterflies in her stomach. She was inviting a millionaire CEO to her tiny apartment. What would he think of their modest life? Would he judge them? But then she remembered how he looked at her at the restaurant, how he listened when she talked about her work. He didn't seem like someone who cared about material things. At least she hoped he wasn't. Saturday arrived too quickly. Naomi spent the day cleaning their small apartment until it sparkled. Lorraine, despite her weakness, insisted on helping cook. They made her famous pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and homemade biscuits. The whole apartment smelled like comfort and love. When the doorbell rang, Naomi took a deep breath before opening it. Dominic stood there in casual clothes, dark jeans and a forest green sweater, looking less like a CEO and more like a regular person. He held a bouquet of flowers in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. Hi, he said, smiling that genuine smile she was starting to love. I wasn't sure what to bring. You didn't have to bring anything. But Naomi took the flowers gratefully. They were beautiful, a mix of colors that brightened their small living room. Inside, Lorraine waited on the couch, too weak to stand for long. But her eyes were sharp and assessing as Dominic approached. Mrs. Bennett, it's an honor to meet you. Dominic extended his hand carefully, mindful that she was fragile. Lorraine shook his hand, studying his face intently. So you're the miracle worker. No miracle. Just someone who wanted to help. Why? Lorraine's question was direct. You don't know us. Why would you do something this generous for strangers? Dominic glanced at Naomi, then back at Lorraine. Because your daughter reminded me that life is about more than business and money. Because I can help and so I should. And because after talking to Naomi for one evening, I could tell that whoever raised her did something remarkable. A woman who could raise someone that compassionate and strong deserves to be healthy. Lorraine's stern expression softened. You're a smooth talker. I'm an honest talker. There's a difference. They ate dinner around the small kitchen table, and Naomi watched Dominic carefully. He didn't look uncomfortable in their modest home. He didn't act superior or condescending. He asked Lorraine about her teaching career, laughed at her stories and complimented the food sincerely. This is better than any restaurant meal I've had, he said, taking another biscuit. My mother would love this recipe. I'll write it down for you, Lorraine said, warming to him. A man your age should know how to cook good food, not just eat at fancy places. After dinner, Lorraine excused herself to rest, leaving Dominic and Naomi alone to clean up. They worked side by side in the small kitchen, falling into an easy rhythm. Your mother is wonderful, Dominic said, washing dishes while Naomi dried. I see where you get your strength. She's my hero. When my dad died, she could have fallen apart. Instead, she worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She never complained, never made us feel like we were struggling. She just kept going. That's love, Dominic said quietly. Real love. The kind that sacrifices without keeping score. Naomi looked at him, surprised by the emotion in his voice. Do your parents love like that? They do. They gave up a lot for me and Whitney. My dad started his company in our garage, working 18-hour days while my mom took care of us. They never seemed stressed or worried, but looking back, I know they were. They protected us from their struggles. You're still protecting their legacy, Naomi said. By trying to save the company. Dominic stopped washing dishes. Maybe. Or maybe I'm so focused on the company that I'm forgetting what they actually taught me. They taught me that business should serve people, not the other way around. Somewhere along the line, I forgot that. You're remembering now. He looked at her, really looked at her, and Naomi felt her heart skip. There was something in his eyes, something warm and intense that made her breath catch. You're making me remember, he said softly. Before either of them could say more, Naomi's phone rang. It was Helen from the community center, her voice frantic. Naomi, I'm sorry to bother you on a Saturday, but we have a family emergency. The Morrison family just got evicted. They have 3 kids and nowhere to go. The shelters are all full. I know it's your day off, but I'll be there in 20 minutes. Naomi hung up and looked at Dominic apologetically. I'm so sorry. There's an emergency at work. What kind of emergency? She explained quickly while grabbing her coat. Dominic listened, frowning. I'll come with you, he said. You don't have to. I want to. Besides, this is exactly the kind of situation the foundation would help with, right? I should see what you actually do. They drove to the community center in Dominic's car. The Morrison family was in the lobby when they arrived. A tired-looking mother, a father who seemed defeated, and 3 scared children aged 4 to 9. Their belongings were stuffed into trash bags. Naomi went to them immediately, kneeling down to the children's level. Hey guys, remember me? Miss Naomi? The kids nodded, clinging to their mother. We're going to figure this out, okay? You're safe here. While Naomi talked to the children, Dominic pulled Helen aside. What's their situation? Father lost his job 3 months ago. Mother works part-time but it's not enough for rent. They fell behind 2 months and got evicted today. They have family out of state but no money to get there. What would solve this immediately? Helen blinked at the question. Ideally? Temporary housing while the father finds work, and help with first month's rent on a new place once he does. But we don't have those resources. We can maybe get them into a shelter by Monday, but even that's not guaranteed. Dominic pulled out his phone and called Frank Peterson. Frank, I need you to book rooms at the Comfort Inn downtown. A suite that can fit a family of 5. Put it on my corporate account, open-ended reservation. Yes, I understand that's expensive. Just do it, please. He hung up and turned to Helen. They'll have a hotel suite tonight. It's clean, safe, and has a kitchen. That solves the immediate crisis. As for the longer-term solution, have the father come to Pierce Industries Monday morning. We're always looking for good workers and we pay fair wages. If he's willing to work, I'll find him a position. Helen's eyes widened. You can't just... I mean, that's incredibly generous, but... But what? A family needs help. I can provide it. Why make it complicated? Naomi overheard and walked over, leaving the family with one of the volunteers. Dominic, you can't just hire someone you've never met. Why not? You help people you've never met every day. That's different. That's my job. And this will be my job through the foundation. Consider this a trial run. He smiled at her confused expression. Does it bother you that I want to help? No, it just surprises me. Most people don't work this way. Maybe they should. They told the Morrison family about the hotel and the job opportunity. The mother burst into tears, hugging Naomi tightly. The father shook Dominic's hand with trembling gratitude. The children, sensing the mood had shifted, started smiling again. As they helped the family get settled at the hotel later that night, Naomi watched Dominic interact with the kids. He was patient and kind, treating them with respect rather than pity. He asked the oldest child about school, listened carefully to her concerns, and promised that everything would get better. When they finally left, it was nearly midnight. Dominic drove Naomi home, both of them exhausted but satisfied. Thank you for coming tonight, Naomi said as they pulled up to her building. You didn't have to do any of that. I wanted to. This is what money should be used for. Not just accumulating more of it but actually helping people. He turned to face her. Have you thought about the job offer? About running the foundation? I have. And I want to say yes. But it scares me. Why? Because it's a big change. Because I've never done anything like this. Because what if I mess it up? Dominic reached over and took her hand. You won't mess it up. You're exactly the right person for this role. You care about people. You understand their struggles. You don't give up when things get hard. Those are the qualities that matter. Naomi looked down at their joined hands. His touch felt warm, reassuring, right? Okay. Yes. I'll do it. Really? Really? But I have conditions. I want to set up a payment plan to repay you for my mother's surgery. Maybe a percentage of my salary goes toward it. I need to feel like I'm contributing. Done. Whatever makes you comfortable. And I want us to be clear about something. Naomi met his eyes directly. I'm taking this job because I believe in the mission, not because I feel obligated to you. I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I don't want our relationship to be about debt or obligation. What do you want it to be about? The question hung in the air between them. Naomi thought about the past week, about how safe she felt with him, how seen. She thought about how he looked at her like she mattered, how he listened like her words had value. I want it to be real, she said finally. Whatever this is between us, I want it to be real. Dominic smiled, that slow, genuine smile that made her heart race. It's real, Naomi. I promise you that. He walked her to her apartment door. This time when they said goodnight, he pulled her into a gentle hug. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and felt something click into place. This was different. He was different. And maybe, just maybe, they were both exactly what the other needed. Naomi's first day at Pierce Industries felt surreal. The building was all glass and steel, modern and imposing. Security guards nodded at her as she entered, and the receptionist already knew her name. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Pierce is expecting you." 21st floor. The elevator ride up felt like entering another world. Through the glass walls, she could see the Seattle skyline, the water, the mountains in the distance. This was Dominic's daily reality, so far removed from the community center's cramped offices and second-hand furniture. Margaret met her at the elevator with a warm smile. "You must be Naomi." "I'm Margaret, Mr. Pierce's assistant. He's finishing a call, but he asked me to show you your office." "My office?" Naomi followed Margaret down a bright hallway. "Of course. You're running the Pierce Foundation. That requires proper workspace." Margaret opened a door to reveal a corner office with windows overlooking the water. There was a large desk, comfortable chairs, and empty bookshelves waiting to be filled. It was bigger than her entire apartment living room. "This is too much," Naomi said breathlessly. "This is exactly right," Dominic's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him leaning in the doorway, wearing a sharp navy suit that made his blue eyes even more striking. "You'll need space for meetings with families, room for files, and honestly, you deserve a nice workspace." "But." "No buts. You're an executive here, Naomi. Act like it." He smiled to soften the words. "Come on, let me show you the rest of the foundation suite." He led her down the hall to a larger area with several desks, a conference room, and a small kitchen. "I've hired a staff to help you. There's a case manager, an accountant, and 2 administrative assistants starting next week. You'll also have access to our legal team and our network of contractors and service providers." Naomi felt overwhelmed. "Dominic, this is so much more than I expected. You can't help families properly without proper support. Trust me, once word gets out about what we're doing, you'll need all the help you can get." He was right. Within 2 weeks, the Pierce Foundation was flooded with applications. Families needing housing, medical care, job training, childcare. The problems were endless, but now Naomi had resources to address them. She worked long hours, but it was different from the community center. Here, when she identified a problem, she could actually solve it. A single mother needed childcare to keep her job? The foundation paid for it. A family couldn't afford their heating bill in the middle of winter? Covered. A teenager wanted to go to college but couldn't afford application fees? Done. Every day, Naomi saw the real impact of what they were building. And every day, she found herself spending more time with Dominic. He would stop by her office with coffee, asking about her cases. She would join him for lunch, and they'd talk about everything from foundation strategy to their childhoods. He told her about the pressure of living up to his father's legacy. She told him about the guilt of leaving the community center, even though she was helping more people now. "You didn't abandon anyone," Dominic said one afternoon as they ate sandwiches in his office. "You expanded your reach. That's not betrayal. That's growth." "I know. Logically, I know that. But emotionally, it feels like I left my post." "You left one post to command a larger army." Dominic grinned. "That was a terrible metaphor. I'm sorry. My point is you're still fighting the same fight. You just have better resources now." Naomi laughed. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You're just finally recognizing it." These moments of lightness became the highlights of her days. Dominic made her laugh in ways she hadn't in years. And slowly, carefully, they were becoming something more than colleagues. One evening they worked late on a grant proposal. It was nearly 8 when Naomi finally stretched and yawned. "We should call it a night," Dominic said, rubbing his eyes. "Have you eaten?" "No, but I'll grab something at home. Or you could let me take you to dinner." Naomi hesitated. They had been carefully maintaining professional boundaries, but the lines were getting blurrier. She saw the way he looked at her. She felt the electricity when their hands accidentally touched. They were dancing around something neither of them had named yet. "Okay," she said. "But somewhere casual. I'm too tired for fancy." They ended up at a small Italian place near the office, sitting in a corner booth with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. It was cozy and unpretentious, and Naomi relaxed immediately. "How's your mother doing?" Dominic asked after they ordered. "Really well. She's gaining strength every day. The transplant is scheduled for 2 weeks from now." They found a match. Naomi's eyes filled with happy tears. I still can't believe this is real. 3 months ago I thought I was going to lose her. Now she's going to be healthy. I'm so glad. Dominic reached across the table and took her hand. You deserve good things, Naomi. So do you. She squeezed his hand. How's the company situation? You haven't mentioned it lately. Dominic's expression darkened slightly. It's still happening. 3 weeks until the takeover is final. I've tried everything, but Blackstone has too much support from the shareholders. I'm sorry. I know how much the company means to you. It does. But lately I've been thinking about what you said that first night. About figuring out what I'm actually trying to save. Maybe I've been fighting for the wrong things. Maybe it's not about keeping the Pierce name on the building. Maybe it's about making sure the mission continues. What do you mean? I mean the company does good work. We build affordable housing. We employ fair labor. We invest in communities. If I'm going to lose the company anyway, maybe I should focus on making sure whoever takes over maintains those values. That's very mature of you. Naomi smiled softly. But I know it still hurts. It does. But having you here, having the foundation, building something that helps people directly, it makes the loss easier. I'm starting to see that there are other ways to make an impact. They talked through dinner and dessert, losing track of time. When Dominic finally drove her home, it was nearly midnight. He walked her to her door as had become his habit. Thank you for dinner, Naomi said, fishing for her keys. And for everything else. For the foundation, for my mom, for being you. Thank you for reminding me who I wanted to be, Dominic replied softly. They stood there in the hallway, close enough that Naomi could feel his warmth. She knew if she invited him in, something would shift between them. They would cross a line from friendship into something more. Part of her wanted that desperately. But another part was scared. Good night, Dominic. Good night, Naomi. He left and she went inside, leaning against the closed door with her heart racing. She was falling for him. Maybe she had been falling since that first night at the restaurant. But falling was scary when you'd spent your whole life trying not to need anyone. The next day was Saturday, and Naomi spent it at the hospital with her mother, doing pre-surgery consultations. Lorraine was nervous but excited, asking a million questions about what to expect after the transplant. The doctor says I might feel better than I have in years, Lorraine said, hope shining in her eyes. I might be able to work part-time again. Maybe even volunteer at the school. One step at a time, Mama. But Naomi was smiling. Seeing her mother excited about the future instead of resigned to decline was worth everything. That afternoon, Whitney Pierce showed up at the hospital with coffee and pastries. I hope it's okay that I came, Whitney said, settling into a chair next to Naomi in the waiting room. Dom mentioned your mom's surgery was coming up, and I wanted to meet the woman who's making my brother human again. Naomi laughed. I don't think I can take credit for that. You absolutely can. He's different now. Lighter. He actually laughed at dinner last week. Do you know how long it's been since I heard him laugh? He's been dealing with a lot. He has. But so have you, and you still managed to find joy. That's a gift, Naomi. You're teaching him how to do that again. They talked for a while, and Naomi found herself really liking Whitney. She was warm and genuine, with none of the snobbery Naomi had feared from Dominic's family. Can I ask you something? Whitney said carefully. What's happening between you and my brother? I don't know, Naomi answered honestly. We're friends, colleagues, but it feels like more, and that scares me. Why does it scare you? Because he's Dominic Pierce. He's wealthy and important and lives in a completely different world than I do. What if this is just temporary? What if he gets bored once the novelty wears off? Whitney shook her head firmly. My brother doesn't do anything halfway. If he cares about you, and I know he does, it's real. He's not playing games. He's probably just as scared as you are. Scared of what? He has everything. Except someone who sees him as just Dominic, not as the CEO or the wealthy heir. You're the first woman who's treated him like a normal person. That's terrifying for him because it means his money and status can't protect him. He actually has to be vulnerable. Naomi hadn't thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on her own fears that she hadn't considered his. When Lorraine was released for the day, Whitney insisted on driving them home. She charmed Lorraine completely, asking about her teaching career and laughing at her stories. By the time they reached Naomi's building, Whitney and Lorraine were making plans for her to come to dinner after the surgery. That evening, Dominic called Naomi. Whitney told me she ambushed you at the hospital. She didn't ambush me. She brought coffee and kindness. I like your sister. She likes you too. She texted me that you're officially approved as family. He paused. Naomi, Can I take you somewhere tomorrow? It's Sunday, we both have the day off and I want to show you something. What is it? A surprise. Dress casually and bring a jacket. Naomi was curious all night. The next morning, Dominic picked her up wearing jeans and a bright blue sweater that made his eyes even more vivid. He looked relaxed and happy, and Naomi felt her heart skip. They drove out of the city heading toward the mountains. The October day was clear and beautiful, the trees showing their autumn colors. After about an hour, Dominic pulled off at a trailhead. We're going hiking? Naomi asked, surprised. I used to come here with my dad when I was a kid. It's not a hard trail, only about 2 miles. But the view at the top is incredible. I wanted to share it with you. They hiked together, talking and laughing. Dominic pointed out different trees and plants, sharing stories from his childhood. Naomi had never seen him this relaxed, this happy. The stress of the business world fell away, leaving just a man who loved nature and good company. At the top of the trail, they found a clearing with a view of the entire valley below. Mountains rose in the distance, and the sky stretched endlessly above them. This is beautiful, Naomi breathed. My dad used to bring me here when life got overwhelming. He'd say that sometimes you need to get above your problems to see them clearly. They sat on a fallen log side by side looking at the view. Can you see your problems more clearly now? Naomi asked. I can see what matters more clearly. Dominic turned to look at her. Naomi, I need to tell you something. Her heart started racing. Okay. I'm falling for you. Maybe I've been falling since that first night at the restaurant. I know this is complicated. I know we work together. I know our worlds are different. But I can't keep pretending this is just friendship. You've changed my life in every way, and I don't want to go back to how things were before I met you. Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. I'm falling for you too. But I'm scared. So am I. He took her hand. But maybe being scared together is better than being safe alone. She looked into his eyes and saw everything she felt reflected back at her. Fear, hope, desire, uncertainty. This was real. This was terrifying. This was worth it. Okay, she whispered. Let's be scared together. Dominic smiled, that beautiful genuine smile, and leaned in slowly. Naomi met him halfway, and when their lips touched, it felt like everything clicked into place. The kiss was gentle and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. So what now? Naomi asked. Now we take it one day at a time. We figure this out together. And we stop pretending we're just friends. He kissed her forehead. Sound good? Sounds perfect. They sat there for a long time, holding hands and watching the clouds move across the sky. For the first time in months, neither of them was thinking about problems or responsibilities. They were just two people falling in love on a beautiful autumn day. And for that moment it was enough. Has something unexpected ever changed your entire life? Naomi and Dominic are discovering that the best things come when you're brave enough to be vulnerable. Subscribe to see how their love story continues to unfold. Lorraine Bennett's kidney transplant was successful. Naomi sat in the recovery room, holding her mother's hand and crying tears of relief and joy. The surgery had taken 6 hours and every minute had been torture. But now the surgeon reported that everything went perfectly. Her mother would live. She would be healthy again. Dominic showed up at the hospital with flowers and food, knowing Naomi hadn't eaten all day. He held her while she cried happy tears, and stayed with her until visiting hours ended. Your mother is going to be fine, he said gently. She's strong just like her daughter. Over the next 2 weeks, Naomi split her time between the foundation and the hospital. Lorraine's recovery was going well, but she tired easily and needed help. Dominic never complained about Naomi's reduced hours at work. Instead, he sent meals to the hospital, arranged for a nurse to help with home care once Lorraine was discharged, and checked in daily. Whitney visited constantly, bringing books and magazines to keep Lorraine entertained. She and Naomi's mother had developed a genuine friendship, chattering about everything from teaching methods to old television shows. 3 weeks after the surgery, Lorraine was strong enough to come home. She moved slowly and needed to rest often, but the color had returned to her face. Her eyes were bright again. She was healing. That Sunday, Dominic arrived at their apartment with his parents in tow. Richard and Patricia Pierce were elegant and gracious, bringing wine and a beautiful flower arrangement. Naomi had been nervous about meeting them, but they immediately put her at ease. We've heard so much about you, Patricia said, embracing Naomi warmly. Dominic talks about you constantly. Richard shook Naomi's hand with a firm grip and kind eyes. Thank you for making our son remember how to smile. Lorraine emerged from her bedroom, moving carefully but smiling widely. Introductions were made, and soon the small apartment was filled with laughter and conversation. Whitney arrived last, bringing homemade dessert and immediately settling into the easy camaraderie. They gathered around Naomi's small dining table, which barely fit everyone, but no one seemed to mind the cramped space. Patricia had insisted on helping Naomi cook, and together they prepared roast chicken, roasted vegetables, and rice pilaf. The food was simple but delicious. "This is wonderful," Richard said, savoring the chicken. "It's been too long since we had a real family meal like this." "Family meal?" Lorraine raised an eyebrow, though she was smiling. "We've only just met." "Family isn't just about blood," Patricia said gently. "It's about connection. About caring for each other. From what I understand, your daughter saved my son just as much as he helped her." Dominic reached under the table and squeezed Naomi's hand. She squeezed back, feeling her heart swell with gratitude. The conversation flowed easily. Richard told stories about starting Pierce Industries in their garage, working 18-hour days while Patricia raised 2 young children. Patricia shared funny anecdotes about Dominic and Whitney as kids, embarrassing them both thoroughly. Lorraine talked about her teaching career and how proud she was of Naomi. When Naomi was 8, Lorraine said, she came home from school and announced she was going to help people when she grew up. Not just some people. Everyone. I asked how she planned to do that and she said she'd figure it out. And here she is, running a foundation that changes lives every day. "I had a good teacher," Naomi said, looking at her mother with love. After dinner they moved to the living room for dessert. The space was even more cramped with 6 people, but again no one minded. They squeezed onto couches and chairs, balancing plates of Whitney's homemade apple pie. "Dominic," Richard said seriously, "tell us honestly. How are things with the company?" The room fell quiet. Dominic had been avoiding this topic all evening, but his father deserved the truth. "The takeover is happening. 2 weeks until it's finalized. I've tried everything, Dad. I'm sorry." Richard studied his son for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Don't apologize. You fought hard. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, we can't control the outcome. What matters is how we respond to it." "How can you be so calm about this?" Dominic asked, frustrated. "This is your legacy. Everything you built." "My legacy isn't a company name on a building," Richard said firmly. "My legacy is you and Whitney. It's the values I taught you. It's the good work you've done and will continue to do. The company was always just a means to an end. The end was making a positive impact. You're still doing that through the foundation. That's what matters." Patricia nodded in agreement. "When your father first told me he wanted to start a construction company, I was terrified. We had no money, 2 small children, and every reason to play it safe. But he said something I've never forgotten. He said, 'The worst thing we can do is let fear stop us from trying to do something meaningful.' You're still doing meaningful work, Dominic. Just in a different form." Dominic looked at his parents with new appreciation. He had spent months agonizing over losing the company, thinking he was failing them. But they weren't disappointed. They were proud of him for adapting, for finding new ways to help people. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I needed to hear that." Lorraine spoke up, her voice gentle but strong. "Can I say something? I'm new to this group, but I've watched my daughter transform over the past 2 months. Dominic, you gave her hope when she had none. You gave her resources to do work she was called to do. But more than that, you gave her something to believe in again. You reminded her that good people exist in this world. That's worth more than any company." "Lorraine's right," Whitney added. "Dom, you've been so focused on the business crisis that you haven't noticed how much you've grown. You're kinder now. More present. You actually listen when people talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. That's because of Naomi." Naomi felt herself blushing. "I didn't do anything special." "You did everything special," Dominic said, looking at her with such open affection that everyone in the room smiled. "You showed me what actually matters. Before I met you, I was drowning in spreadsheets and stress. Now, I'm building something that helps people directly. That's because you inspired me." "You two are sickeningly sweet together," Whitney teased. "But I'm not complaining. It's about time my brother found someone who could handle his intensity." Everyone laughed. The evening continued with more stories, more laughter, more connection. Naomi watched the 2 families blend together seamlessly and felt overwhelming gratitude. A few months ago, her life had been falling apart. Now she was surrounded by people who cared about her, doing work that mattered, and falling in love with a man who saw her for who she really was. Later, after everyone had left except Dominic, who stayed to help clean up, He pulled Naomi onto the small balcony of her apartment. The night air was cool and the city lights twinkled below them. "That was a perfect evening," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Naomi leaned back against his chest. "Your parents are wonderful. I can see where you and Whitney get your kindness. They liked you. I could tell. My dad never opens up like that with strangers, but he felt comfortable with your mother. With you. I'm glad." Naomi turned in his arms to face him. "Dominic, I need to tell you something." "Okay." He looked concerned. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is more than all right. That's what I need to tell you. A few months ago I was drowning. I was exhausted and scared and running out of hope. Then you showed up in my life and changed everything. I know we haven't been together very long, but I need you to know how much you mean to me. How much this all means to me." Dominic cupped her face gently. "You mean everything to me, Naomi. I know I'm supposed to play it cool to not come on too strong. But I'm done pretending. I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have fallen. And that terrifies me, but it also feels like the most right thing in my life." "I'm falling in love with you too," Naomi whispered. "Actually, I think I've been in love with you since you showed up at the community center and offered to pay for my mom's surgery. Since you looked at me like I mattered. You do matter. You matter so much." He kissed her then, deep and slow and full of promise. Naomi melted into him, feeling safe and cherished and hopeful about the future. They stood there on the small balcony, holding each other under the stars, and everything felt possible. Inside, Lorraine watched through the window and smiled. Her daughter had found someone good. Someone worthy of her heart. And after everything they'd been through, that was all a mother could ask for. The next day at work, Naomi and Dominic tried to maintain professional boundaries, but it was hopeless. They kept finding excuses to see each other. He'd bring her coffee. She'd stop by his office to discuss cases that could have been handled over email. By lunchtime, Margaret was smirking at them. "You two aren't fooling anyone," she said, handing Naomi a message. "The whole office knows you're together." "Are people talking?" Naomi asked, worried. "Only about how happy the boss seems lately. Trust me, everyone's thrilled." Dominic was becoming unbearable with the stress. "You've saved us all from his bad moods." That afternoon, Dominic called an impromptu meeting with his senior staff. Naomi attended, since the foundation was now integrated into the company's mission. He stood at the head of the conference table, looking serious. "I want to talk to you all about the future of Pierce Industries," he began. "As you know, the Blackstone takeover is proceeding. In 2 weeks, they will own controlling interest in this company. I've spent months trying to stop this, but I've realized I was fighting the wrong battle. The building, the name, the stock price. Those things don't matter. What matters is the mission. What matters is that we continue building affordable housing and treating workers fairly. So here's what I'm proposing." He pulled up a presentation on the screen. "I'm negotiating terms with Blackstone that protect our current projects and our employees. In exchange for my cooperation, they've agreed to maintain our current contracts and honor all employee agreements for at least 2 years. It's not perfect, but it's something. And in the meantime, the Pierce Foundation will continue to operate independently. We're building something that can outlast any corporate restructuring." The room was silent. Then Thomas Rodriguez started clapping. Soon everyone joined in. They weren't just applauding the business strategy. They were applauding their leader who had learned to let go of ego and focus on what really mattered. After the meeting, Naomi found Dominic alone in his office, staring out at the water. "You okay?" she asked softly. "I'm letting go of my father's company," he said. "I thought I'd feel like a failure. But actually, I feel relieved." "Because you know it's the right thing?" "Because I know there are other ways to honor his legacy. The foundation is my way. Helping families directly, changing lives one person at a time. That's what he would have wanted." Naomi wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Your father is proud of you. I know he is. Thank you." He turned and pulled her close. "For everything. For being patient with me while I figured this out. For showing me that there's more to life than winning and losing in business. You're welcome. Though I think you taught me just as much. You taught me that accepting help isn't weakness. That letting people in can lead to beautiful things. That love is worth the risk." They stood there together, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most. Outside, the city continued its busy rhythm. But in that office, in that moment, everything was calm and right and full of possibility. The future was uncertain. The company might change. Life would throw new challenges at them. But they would face it all together, and that made all the difference. The final week before the Blackstone takeover was chaos. Lawyers filled the conference rooms at Pierce Industries. Documents required Dominic's signature every few hours. The press wanted statements. Shareholders demanded reassurances. Through it all, Dominic remained surprisingly calm. Naomi watched him handle each crisis with grace and wisdom, no longer the stressed, exhausted man she'd met 3 months ago. He had found peace with letting go, and it showed. On Tuesday morning, Dominic had a breakfast meeting with his core leadership team. Naomi attended, since the foundation was now considered essential to the company's mission. They gathered in a bright conference room with catered bagels and coffee, discussing the transition plan. Blackstone wants to meet the foundation team, Thomas said, scrolling through his tablet. They're impressed by the community engagement metrics. Apparently, our positive press coverage has increased significantly since the foundation launched. That's because we're actually helping people, Naomi said. Good news spreads. Exactly. Dominic leaned forward. And that's our leverage. Blackstone is a corporate raider, but even they care about public perception. If we can show them that the foundation is good for business, they'll support it. How do we prove that? Asked Jennifer Liu, the marketing director. Naomi pulled out her laptop and opened a presentation she'd been working on. I've been tracking our impact. In 3 months, the foundation has helped 87 families. Those families have shared their stories on social media, in local news, through word of mouth. Every positive story mentions Pierce Industries. We've generated more goodwill in 3 months than the marketing budget could buy in a year. She clicked through slides showing testimonials, media mentions, and community feedback. The room fell silent as they absorbed the data. This is remarkable, Jennifer breathed. Naomi, do you realize what you've built here? We built it, Naomi corrected. Everyone in this room contributed. Dominic funded it. Thomas structured the finances. Jennifer promoted it. The team executed it. I just coordinated. Don't downplay your role, Dominic said firmly. This was your vision. Your compassion. Your understanding of what families actually need. After the meeting, Naomi returned to her office to find a young woman waiting nervously in the lobby. She was thin, probably in her early 20s, with a toddler on her hip. Can I help you? Naomi asked gently. Are you Miss Bennett? The one who runs the foundation. The woman's voice shook. My name is Rachel Morrison. My family? You helped us a few months ago. My husband got that job at Pierce Industries. Naomi remembered immediately. The family evicted the night of her first date with Dominic. Of course. How are you all doing? We're doing really well. My husband loves his job. We found an apartment we can afford. The kids are happy. Tears filled Rachel's eyes. I came to say thank you. You saved us when we had nowhere else to turn. I tell everyone I meet about what you did for us. I'm so glad things are better. Naomi hugged the young mother. That's what we're here for. I brought you this. Rachel handed Naomi a manila envelope. I know it's not much, but I wanted to give something back. Inside was a homemade card covered in children's drawings and a check for $50. Rachel, you don't have to. Please. Let me contribute. The foundation helped us, and now we want to help others. It's only $50, but if everyone you helped gave a little, imagine how many more families you could reach. Naomi looked at the check and felt tears prick her eyes. This was what it was all about. Not just receiving help, but creating a cycle of giving back. Building community. Thank you, she said sincerely. This means more than you know. After Rachel left, Naomi sat at her desk thinking. What if they created a donation program for families who had been helped? Not a requirement, just an opportunity. People who had received assistance could contribute what they could afford when they were back on their feet. It would give them dignity and help the foundation grow organically. She called Dominic immediately. I have an idea. 20 minutes later, they were in his office, brainstorming. Dominic loved the concept and called in Thomas and Jennifer to develop it further. By the end of the day, they had outlined a comprehensive program, the Circle of Hope. Families helped by the foundation would be invited to join, contributing whatever they could afford whenever they were able. Even $5 a month mattered. It wasn't about the money. It was about creating community and giving people a way to participate in helping others. This is brilliant, Jennifer said. It's the perfect story for Blackstone. We're not just giving charity. We're building sustainable community engagement. Schedule the presentation for Friday, Dominic decided. Naomi, you'll present it. This is your vision. You should be the one to share it. Friday morning arrived with Seattle rain and gray skies, but inside Pierce Industries, energy buzzed. The Blackstone executive team arrived at 10. 5 men and women in expensive suits, carrying leather portfolios and wearing expressions of polite skepticism. Naomi had dressed carefully in a bright red dress that made her feel confident. She'd practiced her presentation a dozen times, but nerves still fluttered in her stomach. These people controlled the company's future. They controlled whether the foundation would continue. Dominic squeezed her hand before they entered the conference room. "You've got this. Just tell them the truth. Tell them what we've built and why it matters." The presentation started with Dominic providing context. He explained the foundation's creation, its mission, and its integration with Pierce Industries' larger goals. Then he introduced Naomi. She stood, took a breath, and began. 3 months ago, I was a social worker at an underfunded community center. I spent my days trying to help families with resources that were never enough. I watched good people suffer not because they weren't working hard, but because one medical emergency or one lost job could destroy everything they'd built. I felt helpless. She clicked to the first slide, showing photos of families they'd helped. The Pierce Foundation changed that. We don't just provide temporary assistance. We provide stability, housing security, medical care, job training, childcare. We address root causes, not just symptoms. And it works. She walked them through the data. 87 families helped, a 95% success rate in maintaining housing stability, increased employment rates, improved health outcomes for children. Then she showed them the community impact, positive media coverage, social media engagement, employee satisfaction scores that had increased by 40% since the foundation launched. But here's what makes this special, Naomi continued, pulling up information about the Circle of Hope program. We're not creating dependency. We're creating community. Families we've helped are now giving back, contributing what they can afford to help others. This isn't charity. This is sustainable community building. She told them about Rachel Morrison, about the $50 check in the homemade card. She showed them testimonials from employees who were proud to work for a company that cared about more than profits. She made them see what Dominic had shown her, that doing good was also good business. When she finished, the room was quiet. The Blackstone executives looked at each other, having silent conversations with their eyes. Finally, the lead executive, a woman named Catherine Brooks, spoke. "Miss Bennett, that was compelling. But I need to be blunt. Blackstone acquired Pierce Industries because we saw financial potential. Corporate social responsibility is nice, but it's not our primary concern." Naomi's heart sank, but she held her ground. "With respect, Ms. Brooks, I think you're looking at this wrong. The foundation isn't separate from financial success. It's integral to it. Pierce Industries has always built affordable housing. That's not just our mission. It's our brand identity. Without that identity, you're just another real estate developer. With it, you're a company that communities trust. That matters. In today's market, consumers care about corporate values. They choose to work with companies that align with their beliefs. The foundation is what makes Pierce Industries special. Take it away and you're buying a company without its soul." Catherine studied her carefully. "You're very passionate about this." "I am. Because I've seen what it does. I've watched families transform. I've seen hope return to people's eyes. And I've watched this company's reputation grow because of it. You're investors. You want return on investment. I'm telling you that the foundation provides that return, just not in the way you're used to measuring it." Another executive, a man named Gerald Foster, leaned forward. "What happens if we decide the foundation isn't financially viable?" Before Naomi could answer, Dominic stood. "Then I make you an offer. Let the foundation operate independently for 1 year, with full funding as outlined in our proposal. If at the end of that year you can demonstrate that it's actively harming the company's bottom line, I'll shut it down myself. But I'm betting that you'll see increased employee retention, positive press coverage, and stronger community relationships. I'm betting that you'll want to expand it, not close it." Thomas jumped in with financial projections. Jennifer presented marketing analysis. The entire Pierce Industries team rallied, making the case for keeping the foundation alive. The Blackstone team asked tough questions. They challenged every assumption, every projection. But Naomi and the team had answers. They had data. They had stories. They had proof that doing good could also be good business. Finally, Catherine called for a break. The Blackstone executives retreated to deliberate privately. Naomi collapsed into a chair, exhausted. "You were amazing," Dominic said, kneeling beside her chair. "Whatever happens, you gave it everything. What if they say no? Then we find another way. We don't give up." Whitney appeared with water bottles and snacks, having watched the presentation from the back of the room. "They're going to say yes. They'd be idiots not to. An hour passed. Then 90 minutes. Just when Naomi thought she couldn't take the suspense anymore, the conference room door opened. The Blackstone team filed back in, their expressions unreadable. Catherine stood at the head of the table. "We've discussed your proposal extensively. The foundation represents an unconventional approach to corporate operations. However, we can't ignore the data you've presented. The community engagement is impressive. The employee satisfaction increase is significant. And frankly, the positive press coverage is valuable." She paused and Naomi held her breath. "We've decided to accept your proposal. The Pierce Foundation will continue operating as outlined with full funding for 1 year. At that point, we'll evaluate its effectiveness and decide whether to continue. Additionally, we'd like Miss Bennett to present this model to our other portfolio companies. If it works here, it might work elsewhere." The room erupted in applause. Naomi felt tears streaming down her face as Dominic pulled her into a tight hug. They'd done it. They'd saved the foundation. After the Blackstone team left, the Pierce Industries staff celebrated. Margaret brought champagne. People hugged and laughed and shared their relief. They hadn't just survived the takeover. They'd found a way to make it work for everyone. That evening, Dominic took Naomi to the same restaurant where they'd had their first date. They sat at the same table by the window, but everything was different now. They weren't strangers dreading a blind date. They were partners who had just won an important battle together. "We did it," Naomi said, still in shock. "I can't believe we actually did it." "You did it," Dominic corrected. "That presentation was perfect. You made them see what I've known since I met you, that you're extraordinary. I couldn't have done any of it without you. Without your resources, your support, your belief in the mission." "We make a good team," Dominic said, taking her hand across the table. "In work and in life." Naomi smiled. "The best team." They ordered the same meals they'd had on their first date, laughing at the coincidence. But this time there was no awkwardness, no uncertainty. There was just comfort and joy and the knowledge that they'd built something meaningful together. "What happens now?" Naomi asked. "With the company, with us, with everything?" "Now we keep building. The foundation continues. Blackstone takes over the company operations, but our mission remains intact. And us." He smiled that smile that still made her heart skip. "We keep figuring this out together. One day at a time." "I like the sound of that." Later, as they walked along the marina where they'd walked on their first date, Naomi reflected on how much had changed in 3 months. She'd gone from drowning in problems to leading a foundation that changed lives. Her mother was healthy. She was in love with an incredible man. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. Really good. "Thank you," she said suddenly. "For what?" "For showing up to that blind date. For being different than I expected. For seeing me." Dominic stopped walking and turned to face her. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me. For giving me a chance. For teaching me that there's more to life than business success. You saved me, Naomi, just as much as I helped you." They kissed under the stars, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most. The future still held challenges. The foundation would have to prove itself. The company transition would be difficult. But they would face it all together. And that made all the difference. November brought cold rain to Seattle and a new rhythm to Naomi's life. The foundation was thriving under the scrutiny of Blackstone's evaluation. Every case was documented, every success story recorded. The pressure was constant, but Naomi felt energized rather than drained. This was what she was meant to do. Her relationship with Dominic deepened quietly, naturally. They had dinner together most nights, either at restaurants or at one of their homes. He met her friends. She met his business associates. They went to movies, took long walks, talked for hours about everything and nothing. Lorraine loved him. She had regained enough strength to return to part-time work at the local elementary school, teaching second grade twice a week. Every time Dominic visited, she insisted on cooking for him, teaching him her recipes, and treating him like the son she'd never had. "That man loves you," Lorraine told Naomi one Saturday morning. They were making breakfast together in Naomi's kitchen, a weekend routine they'd maintained since Lorraine's recovery. "I can see it in how he looks at you. Like you're his whole world." "I love him too, Mama." Naomi flipped a pancake. "It's scary how much I love him." "Why scary?" "Because what if it doesn't last? What if this is just the honeymoon phase and eventually we realize we're too different?" Lorraine set down her spatula and turned to face her daughter. "Baby, you can't protect yourself from heartbreak by holding back. Love requires risk. Your father and I, we jumped in with both feet. We had 15 good years before he passed, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Don't waste time being scared. Life's too short." Naomi hugged her mother tightly. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just finally listening. That afternoon, Naomi was at the office catching up on paperwork when Whitney burst in, looking excited. I need your help planning something, Whitney announced, plopping into the chair across from Naomi's desk. Okay, what are we planning? Dom's birthday is in 2 weeks. He hates celebrating, but I want to throw him a proper party. Just close friends and family. Nothing huge, but something meaningful. Will you help me? Naomi smiled. Of course. What did you have in mind? They spent the next hour planning. Whitney wanted to rent out a small restaurant, invite about 30 people, and surprise Dominic. Naomi loved the idea but added a suggestion. What if, instead of gifts, they asked people to donate to the Pierce Foundation in Dominic's name? It would be meaningful and aligned with his values. That's perfect, Whitney said, hugging Naomi. You know him so well. Can you believe you've only known each other 3 months? It feels like you've been together forever. Sometimes the right person fits immediately, Naomi said. No adjustment period needed. The party planning became a welcome distraction from work stress. Naomi coordinated with the restaurant, helped Whitney design invitations, and kept the secret from Dominic despite his suspicious questions about why she and Whitney were texting so much. Meanwhile, the foundation continued its work. The Circle of Hope program launched successfully, with 15 families signing up to contribute small monthly amounts. Local news covered the story, praising the innovative approach to community building. The positive press caught Blackstone's attention in a good way. Catherine Brooks called me yesterday, Dominic told Naomi over lunch one day. She wants to implement the foundation model at 3 other Pierce Industries properties. She's impressed with our results. That's amazing. We could help so many more people. I know. And it's all because of you. He reached across the table to hold her hand. You built something special, Naomi. Something that's changing the way a major corporation thinks about community engagement. We built it together, she corrected, but her heart swelled with pride. That evening they attended a foundation event at the community center. 20 families who had received assistance were there, along with volunteers and donors. It was supposed to be a simple thank you gathering, but it turned into something more. One by one, families stood up to share their stories. A single father talked about how childcare assistance allowed him to complete his nursing degree. A grandmother raising her grandchildren thanked them for helping with medical bills. A young couple shared how housing assistance gave them stability to start their own small business. Naomi listened with tears streaming down her face. This was why they did the work. These stories, these transformed lives. At the end of the evening, Rachel Morrison approached with her husband. Miss Bennett, Mr. Pierce, we wanted to tell you something. We're pregnant again. With twins. Congratulations, Naomi said, hugging Rachel. That's wonderful news. It is. But a few months ago it would have been terrifying. We were homeless and hopeless. Now we have stability. We have jobs and a home and hope for the future. Our kids are going to grow up knowing that good people exist in the world. That's because of you. After everyone left, Naomi and Dominic helped clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, both processing the evening's emotions. Does it ever overwhelm you? Dominic asked as they stacked chairs. Seeing how much people are struggling? Knowing there are thousands more we haven't reached yet? Sometimes, Naomi admitted. But then I remember something my mom used to tell me. You can't save everyone, but you can save someone. Every person we help matters. Every family that finds stability counts. We're not trying to fix everything. We're just trying to make things a little better, one person at a time. Dominic stopped working and looked at her with such intensity that her breath caught. I need to tell you something. Okay. Naomi set down the chair she was holding. These past few months with you have been the best of my life. Not just because the foundation is succeeding or because losing the company turned out okay. But because of you. Because of who you are and how you make me feel. You're kind and compassionate and brilliant. You see the best in people. You make me want to be better. And he took a deep breath. I love you, Naomi. I'm completely, entirely in love with you. Naomi felt her heart soar. She'd known he cared about her, but hearing him say those words made everything real. This wasn't just dating. This wasn't just a relationship. This was love. I love you too, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. I think I've loved you since the night you showed up at the community center to offer help. Since you looked at me like I mattered. Since you made me believe that good things could still happen. They came together in a kiss that was different from all the others. This kiss held promise and commitment. This kiss said that they were choosing each other fully and completely. When they finally pulled apart, they were both crying happy tears. "I don't have a ring or a grand romantic gesture," Dominic said, wiping his eyes. "But I know what I want. I want you. I want a future with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and solve problems together and build a life that matters. I want all of it, Naomi. With you. Are you asking me to marry you?" Naomi's voice came out as a whisper. "Not yet. I want to do that properly with your mother's blessing and a ring and all the things you deserve. But I'm telling you my intentions. I'm telling you that this isn't casual for me. This is everything." "It's everything for me too," Naomi said. "I want all of that with you. The future, the partnership, the life. All of it." They held each other in the empty community center, surrounded by the echoes of the evening's stories. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. Inside, two people promised each other a future built on love, kindness, and hope. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work and secret party planning. Naomi juggled foundation responsibilities, family time with her mother, and coordinating with Whitney for the surprise celebration. Somehow, she managed to keep it all from Dominic, despite his growing suspicion that something was up. The night of his birthday, Naomi told Dominic they were going to dinner at a new restaurant Whitney had recommended. He dressed casually in dark jeans and a burgundy sweater, looking handsome and relaxed. As they drove to the restaurant, Naomi's phone buzzed with updates from Whitney. Everyone had arrived, the space looked beautiful, and they were ready. When Dominic opened the restaurant door, 30 people shouted, "Surprise!" He stood there, genuinely shocked, as friends and family rushed forward. Richard and Patricia were there, beaming with pride. Whitney hugged her brother tightly, laughing at his stunned expression. Employees from Pierce Industries mingled with families from the foundation. Lorraine sat at a place of honor, chatting with Margaret. It was a perfect mix of all the people who mattered in Dominic's life. "You did this?" Dominic asked Naomi, pulling her aside. "Whitney and I did it together. You deserve to be celebrated. I hate birthday parties." "I know. But sometimes we have to let people show us they care." She smiled. "Besides, there are no gifts. Everyone donated to the foundation in your name. We raised $8,000. Dominic's eyes filled with tears. That's perfect. Thank you." The evening was filled with laughter, good food, and heartfelt toasts. Richard gave a speech about watching his son grow into a man of integrity. Whitney told embarrassing childhood stories that had everyone roaring with laughter. Thomas talked about Dominic's leadership during the company crisis. Then Naomi stood to speak. "3 months ago, I went on a blind date I didn't want to go on," she began, and everyone chuckled. "I was tired, stressed, and convinced that nothing good could come from it. But I was wrong. That night, I met someone who changed my life. Dominic, you gave me and my family the gift of hope when we needed it most. You created opportunities for me to do work that matters. You treated me with kindness and respect from the very first moment. And you taught me that good people still exist in this world. So on your birthday, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being exactly who you are. Happy birthday." Everyone applauded. Dominic stood and hugged her, whispering in her ear, "Best birthday ever." Later, after cake had been served and people were starting to leave, Dominic pulled Naomi outside to the restaurant's patio. The November air was cold but clear, stars visible above the city lights. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. "But it's your birthday. I should be giving you things. Just open it." He handed her a small velvet box. Naomi's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a delicate necklace with a small pendant shaped like a house. It was simple but beautiful. "The house represents home," Dominic explained. "You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. You've given me a sense of home, of belonging. No matter what happens with the company or the foundation or anything else, you're my home, Naomi." She threw her arms around him, crying happy tears. "I love it. I love you. I love you too. More than I thought possible." They stood there together, holding each other under the stars, surrounded by the warmth of the restaurant behind them. Inside, their families and friends celebrated. Outside, they celebrated too, just the two of them, knowing that this was just the beginning of their story. Life was good. Love was real. And hope, that precious, fragile thing, was blooming in both of their hearts. December arrived with the first snowfall Seattle had seen in years. The city transformed into a winter scene, and Naomi woke up on a Saturday morning to find white coating everything outside her window. She smiled, feeling the magic of it, and reached for her phone to text Dominic. He called instead of texting back. "Look outside," he said, sounding delighted. "It's snowing." "I know. It's beautiful. Want to go play in it?" I know we're adults, but I don't care. Let's build a snowman. Naomi laughed. You're ridiculous. I love it. Give me 30 minutes. They spent the morning in a park near her apartment, acting like children. They built a lopsided snowman, had a snowball fight, and made snow angels. Other couples and families were doing the same thing, everyone embracing the rare Seattle snow day. Afterward, they went back to Naomi's apartment, cold and wet and laughing. Lorraine had hot chocolate waiting, having watched their antics from the window with amusement. You two are good together, Lorraine said as they warmed up. You remind each other how to have fun. She was right. Dominic had taught Naomi that it was okay to slow down, to enjoy simple moments. And Naomi had taught Dominic that success wasn't just measured in business achievements. They balanced each other perfectly. That afternoon, as they sat on the couch watching the snow continue to fall, Dominic grew quiet. Naomi could tell something was on his mind. What are you thinking about? She asked. The future. Our future. He turned to face her. Naomi, I want to do this right. I want to ask your mother for her blessing before I propose to you. Would that be okay? Naomi's heart raced. You want to marry me? Of course I want to marry you. I've wanted that for weeks now. But I want to honor your family traditions. I want to do this properly. She's in her room taking a nap right now. You could ask her when she wakes up. Dominic looked nervous, which Naomi found adorable. This confident CEO who commanded boardrooms was anxious about talking to her mother. An hour later, when Lorraine emerged from her nap, Dominic asked if he could speak with her privately. They went into the kitchen while Naomi stayed in the living room, trying not to eavesdrop but failing miserably. She couldn't hear exact words, but she heard her mother's voice rise with emotion, then laughter, then what sounded like tears. After 20 minutes they emerged together. Lorraine was crying happy tears and Dominic looked relieved. She said yes, he told Naomi, grinning. Your mother gave me her blessing. Lorraine hugged her daughter tightly. He asked very sweetly. Told me all about how much he loves you and what his plans are for your future. I told him that I've known since the first dinner that you two were meant for each other. Now go on, let him do what he came here to do. Naomi looked at Dominic in surprise. You're proposing now? Right now? Is that okay? I have a ring in my car. I've been carrying it around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. And this feels right. The first snow, you're home, your mother giving her blessing. This feels perfect. He went to his car and returned with another velvet box, this one larger than the necklace box. Lorraine quietly excused herself to give them privacy. Dominic knelt down on one knee in the living room of Naomi's small apartment, holding the ring box with trembling hands. Naomi Bennett, you walked into my life when I needed you most. You taught me how to be human again, how to care about things that really matter. You're smart and kind and beautiful. You challenge me to be better while accepting who I am. You've given me a future I want to fight for. Will you marry me? Will you build a life with me? Naomi was crying too hard to speak immediately. She nodded frantically, trying to catch her breath. Yes, she finally managed. Yes, of course, yes. Dominic slipped the ring onto her finger. It was beautiful, a simple but elegant design with a diamond that caught the light from the windows. It was perfect, just like everything else about this moment. They kissed and Lorraine came back into the room, clapping and crying. She hugged them both, blessing them in that way mothers do, speaking prayers and promises over their future. That evening they called everyone. Whitney screamed with joy over the phone. Richard and Patricia cried happy tears and insisted on taking them to dinner to celebrate. Margaret sent a message saying it was about time. The next few days were a whirlwind of congratulations and excitement. At work, Naomi couldn't stop looking at her ring. Her staff teased her lovingly about being distracted. The families they worked with celebrated with them, treating the news like a victory for everyone. After all, they had watched Naomi and Dominic's relationship develop from the beginning. You're going to have the most beautiful wedding, Rachel Morrison said during a foundation meeting. Make sure you invite us. We want to celebrate the people who changed our lives. Naomi promised to include them. This wasn't just about her and Dominic. It was about community, about all the connections they'd built together. 2 weeks before Christmas, Pierce Industries held its annual holiday party. Normally, Dominic dreaded these events, but this year was different. This year he had Naomi by his side. She wore a flowing emerald green dress that made her glow. Her hair was styled elegantly, the engagement ring sparkled on her finger, and she moved through the room with grace and confidence. Dominic watched her talk to employees, asking about their families, remembering details about their lives. She treated the janitor with the same respect as the senior executives. It was one of the things he loved most about her. Catherine Brooks from Blackstone attended the party, something that surprised Dominic. I wanted to see the foundation's impact for myself, Catherine explained. The data is impressive, but I wanted to meet the people behind the numbers. Naomi spent 30 minutes talking to Catherine about their work, sharing stories and introducing her to families who had been helped. By the end of the conversation, Catherine looked genuinely moved. You've built something remarkable here, Catherine told them. Blackstone's board wants to expand this model to all our properties. We're talking about creating foundations in 5 cities, all based on what you've developed here in Seattle. Miss Bennett, we'd like you to oversee the expansion. You'd travel some, but you'd have significant resources and support. Naomi looked at Dominic, silently asking if this was okay with him. He nodded encouragingly. I'd be honored, Naomi said. But I have one condition. The foundations need to be truly independent, run by people who care about the communities they serve. I'll help set them up, but they need local leadership. Agreed, Catherine said. We're learning that authentic community engagement can't be manufactured or controlled. It has to be real. After Catherine left, Dominic pulled Naomi onto the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, he whispered, You're amazing. You just secured funding to help thousands more families. We secured it. I couldn't have done any of this without you. We're a team, Dominic said. In everything. Christmas week arrived, and both families gathered at Richard and Patricia's house on Bainbridge Island. It was a large, comfortable home with water views and a warmth that spoke of years of love and family gatherings. Lorraine fit in seamlessly, helping Patricia cook and laughing at Richard's terrible jokes. Whitney appointed herself wedding planner, already making lists of venues and vendors despite Naomi's protests that they hadn't set a date yet. On Christmas morning they exchanged gifts around a massive tree. The presents were thoughtful rather than expensive. Naomi gave Dominic a leather journal for his ideas and dreams. He gave her a donation to the community center in her name. Lorraine gave them both a handmade quilt she'd been secretly working on, each square representing a moment in their relationship. For your future home, Lorraine said as Naomi cried over the beautiful gift. Every couple needs something made with love. Richard stood up and raised his glass. I want to make a toast. To Dominic and Naomi. This year has been one of transition for our family. We lost control of the company we built, but we gained so much more. We gained perspective. We gained purpose. And most importantly, we gained Naomi. Welcome to our family, sweetheart. You're exactly what we needed. Everyone clinked glasses and wiped away tears. It was a perfect Christmas, made more perfect because they were together. Later that evening, Dominic and Naomi walked along the beach near his parents' house. The winter air was cold, but they bundled up in coats and scarves, holding hands as they walked. Happy? Dominic asked. Happier than I ever thought possible, Naomi said honestly. 6 months ago I was drowning. Now I'm engaged to the man I love, my mother is healthy, and I'm doing work that matters. It feels like a dream. It's not a dream. It's real. We built this together. They stopped and looked out at the water, watching the lights from Seattle reflect on the waves. When should we get married? Naomi asked. I know Whitney wants to start planning. Whenever you want. Tomorrow, next year, whenever feels right. I just want to be married to you. How about spring? April maybe. When everything is blooming and new. April sounds perfect. They sealed it with a kiss, making plans for their future. They talked about where they would live, deciding to find a place that was theirs together rather than using either of their current apartments. They discussed the foundation's expansion and how they'd balance work and family. They dreamed about children someday, about creating a home filled with love and laughter. As they walked back to the house, Naomi reflected on the journey that brought them to this moment. A blind date she didn't want to attend. A man who saw her for who she really was. A love that transformed both their lives. She thought about all the families they'd helped, all the lives that had been changed because one person decided to use their resources for good. She thought about the ripple effect of kindness, how one act of generosity could spread and multiply. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For showing up that night. For giving us a chance. For being brave enough to be vulnerable. Dominic squeezed her hand. Thank you for the same. For accepting my help. For trusting me. For loving me despite my flaws. Because of your flaws, Naomi corrected. They make you real. Inside the warm house, their families waited. Tomorrow they would return to the city and their regular lives. But tonight, they were just two people in love, surrounded by family, grateful for the unexpected ways life could surprise you. Sometimes, the best things come from the dates you don't want to go on, the chances you almost don't take, the moments when you let someone see who you really are. Sometimes blind dates change everything. April arrived with cherry blossoms and sunshine. Seattle woke from winter's gray, and the city seemed to celebrate alongside Naomi and Dominic's wedding preparations. The past few months had been busy but joyful. The foundation had expanded to 3 additional cities, with plans for 2 more by summer. Each new location was led by passionate locals who understood their communities. Naomi traveled regularly to train and support them, but she was careful to maintain balance. Work was important, but so was her relationship and her health. Dominic had fully transitioned out of day-to-day operations at Pierce Industries. Blackstone's management team was running the company competently, maintaining the affordable housing mission while improving efficiency. He served on the board but spent most of his time focused on the foundation and other philanthropic projects. He was happier than he'd been in years. Now, standing in a small room at the Botanical Gardens where the ceremony would take place, Dominic adjusted his tie for the 5th time. Thomas and Frank stood with him, both looking amused at his nerves. "You've run a multi-million-dollar company," Thomas said. "Why are you nervous about a wedding?" "Because the company didn't matter this much," Dominic replied honestly. "Naomi matters. Getting this right matters." "You've already gotten it right," Frank assured him. "She loves you. You love her. The rest is just showing up." In another room, Naomi was getting ready with Whitney, Lorraine, and Patricia. The wedding dress was simple but elegant, a cream-colored gown that flowed when she moved. Her hair was styled naturally, adorned with small white flowers. She looked radiant. "How are you feeling, baby?" Lorraine asked, adjusting Naomi's veil. "Like the luckiest woman alive." Naomi's eyes filled with happy tears. "Is this really happening, Mama? Am I really marrying him?" "You really are. And you deserve every bit of happiness coming your way." Patricia handed Naomi a small wrapped box. "Something old. This was Richard's grandmother's locket. I wore it at my wedding, and I'd be honored if you wore it at yours." Naomi opened the box to find a delicate silver locket. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Your family now, Naomi. Truly." Whitney helped fasten the locket, then stepped back to admire her future sister-in-law. "You look perfect. Dom is going to cry when he sees you." The ceremony was held in a garden pavilion surrounded by flowering trees. Only 50 people attended, exactly as Naomi and Dominic wanted. Close friends, family, and several families from the foundation who had become dear to them. Rachel Morrison and her family sat in the front row, the twins in her belly just starting to show. The music began, and Dominic stood at the altar with his father as his best man. His heart pounded as he waited. Then Naomi appeared at the end of the aisle, holding Lorraine's arm. She was breathtaking. The sunlight caught in her hair, her smile was brilliant, and she was looking at him like he was her whole world. Because he was. Just as she was his. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, promising to support each other's dreams, to communicate honestly, to choose love even when things got hard, and to always remember that they were a team. "I promise to be your safe place," Naomi said, her voice strong despite her tears. "Your partner in everything. Your biggest supporter and your most honest critic. I promise to love you in the easy times and the difficult ones. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our values and dreams." "I promise to always see you," Dominic said, holding both her hands. "Not as an extension of me but as your own incredible person. I promise to support your work, to share the load at home, and to never take you for granted. I promise to make you laugh, to hold you when you cry, and to always choose us." When the officiant pronounced them married, they kissed while everyone cheered. As they walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, Naomi squeezed Dominic's hand tightly. "We did it," she whispered. "Best decision I ever made," he whispered back. The reception was held in a nearby hall decorated simply with flowers and lights. Instead of a formal sit-down dinner, they had food stations with various cuisines, encouraging people to mix and mingle. There was music and dancing and endless laughter. During the father-daughter dance, Lorraine insisted on dancing with Naomi despite being a little weak. They moved slowly, holding each other close. "Your father would be so proud," Lorraine said softly. "He always knew you'd find someone special. Someone who saw how remarkable you are. I wish he could be here." "He is here, baby. In your heart. In the way you love people. In the values you live by. He's always with you." Dominic danced with Patricia, who told him stories about his childhood and how proud she was of the man he'd become. Then Whitney cut in, hugging her brother tightly. "You're happy," she said. "It wasn't a question. Happier than I knew was possible." "Good. You deserve it." You both do. During the reception, something unexpected happened. Catherine Brooks arrived, apologizing for not RSVPing but explaining that she wanted to deliver news in person. She pulled Dominic and Naomi aside. "I'm sorry to intrude on your wedding day," Catherine began, "but I thought you'd want to know this. The foundation model has been such a success that Blackstone's board decided to make it a standard part of all our operations. Not just in real estate but across all our portfolio companies. We're allocating $50 million annually to community foundations based on what you built. You've literally changed how a major corporation operates. That's remarkable." Naomi and Dominic looked at each other in shock. $50 million. Hundreds of communities helped. Thousands of families impacted. That's incredible, Naomi finally said. "It's good business and the right thing to do," Catherine said. "That's what you taught us. Those things don't have to be in conflict." After Catherine left, Dominic pulled Naomi onto the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, he spoke quietly. "Do you realize what we've done? We changed how a major corporation thinks about community responsibility. That impact will outlive us both." "We did it together," Naomi said. "That's what makes it special. Neither of us could have done this alone." Later, during toasts, Richard stood and spoke about legacy. "For years I thought my legacy was Pierce Industries. The buildings we constructed, the company we built. But I was wrong. My real legacy is my children and the values I tried to instill in them. Watching Dominic and Naomi build something meaningful together, watching them use resources to help others, that's the legacy that matters. I'm proud of you both." Rachel Morrison asked to speak, surprising everyone. She stood up, holding her husband's hand. "Naomi and Dominic saved my family when we had nowhere to turn. They gave us hope when we'd lost it. Because of them, my children will grow up with stability and security. They'll grow up knowing that good people exist in this world. That matters more than anything. So I want to toast to love that transforms lives. To kindness that ripples outward. To two people who prove that one person really can make a difference. Congratulations and thank you." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. As the evening wound down, Naomi and Dominic snuck outside for a moment alone. They stood under the stars, still wearing their wedding clothes, just breathing in the magnitude of the day. "Mrs. Pierce," Dominic said, testing out her new name. "I'm keeping Bennett professionally," Naomi reminded him with a smile. "But I like how you say it." "Fair enough. Mrs. Bennett Pierce? That's better." She leaned against him. "What happens now?" "Now we go on our honeymoon. 2 weeks in Italy with no work, no obligations, just us. Then we come home and keep building our life together. Keep helping families. Keep loving each other. Keep figuring it out as we go." "Sounds perfect." They stayed there for a while longer, holding each other under the spring stars. Inside, their families and friends celebrated. But out here, it was just the two of them, two people who had found each other when they both needed it most. 6 months ago, Dominic had been alone in his office, thinking his world was ending. 6 months ago, Naomi had been drowning in problems with no solutions in sight. Now they stood together, married and happy, having built something beautiful not just with each other but for their entire community. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been challenges and uncertainties. But they had faced it all with kindness, hope, and love leading the way. They had learned that accepting help wasn't weakness. That vulnerability was strength. That the best things in life often come from the chances you almost don't take. As they walked back inside to rejoin their celebration, Naomi thought about that first blind date. How she almost canceled. How he almost canceled. How neither of them expected anything good to come from it. Life was funny that way. The things you dread often turn into the things you treasure most. The people you almost don't meet become the people you can't imagine living without. The moments that seem ordinary become the moments that change everything. "Thank you," she said one more time. "For what?" Dominic asked. "For showing up that night. For being brave enough to be vulnerable. For loving me. Thank you for the same. For saving me when I didn't know I needed saving. For teaching me what really matters. For loving me back." They kissed again, husband and wife, partners in all things, ready to face whatever came next together. Inside, Whitney was making a speech about love and persistence. Margaret was dancing with Thomas. Lorraine was laughing with Patricia and Richard. Rachel Morrison's children were running around with other kids, all of them happy and secure. The families they'd helped were celebrating alongside the wealthy executives from Blackstone. Different worlds had come together because two people decided that kindness mattered more than status, that community mattered more than profit, that love was the most important thing of all. And somewhere in Seattle, Another person was getting ready for a blind date they didn't want to go on. Another person was tired and stressed and convinced nothing good could happen. But maybe, just maybe, they would take the chance anyway. Maybe they would show up despite their fears. Maybe they would meet someone who changed everything. Because that's how the best stories begin. With a single choice: to be open, to be brave, to believe that good things can still happen even when everything feels impossible. Naomi and Dominic's story started with a reluctant blind date and one last chance at love. It grew into a partnership that changed lives and transformed communities. But most importantly, it became a testament to the power of hope, the importance of kindness, and the transformative nature of real, honest love.